Hey everybody, it's Matt Johnson. We're back. This is another edition of the Pursuing Results podcast where we interview successful people about one book that changed their life. We're talking about an amazing book today that's been super influential in my life and influential in the life of my guest today. We'll bring him in a second. For now, let's bring in the Junior Grandmaster himself in the co-pilot seat. Greg, what's up today?
What's up, Matthew? How are you? I figured I'd go with your full given birth name today for some weird reason. I don't know why that just popped in my head.
You've literally never once called me by my full name.
No, because it creeps me out. But I got to tell you,
I'm pretty sure nobody's called me that since I was 5 years old, and it's probably my mom.
oh, it's definitely your mother, because you were in deep shit when that happened too.
Okay.
When you get your first, your middle, and your last name, you're like, oh, I better just sit down and take the beating.
That's right.
Because here it comes. But I'm really, I've been looking forward to this interview with Greg Harrelson for quite a bit. I know that you guys, this book has really been influential to you. I have not had the opportunity to read it yet, so I want to get your points of view. And then, of course, as you two were making fun of me pre-show, yes, I will download it and listen to it and not read it because I'm dyslexic. You make fun of the kid in the podcast with a problem mentally. Yeah. Nicely done, gentlemen.
Mental problem, that's right. We'll eventually be sponsored by Audible, so it'll be all okay, and people can download it there. So Greg, he mentioned your name. So Greg Harrelson. Greg, what's up today?
Hey, man. I'm just a lot of things, and I've been tearing it up all day and excited to get over here and talk with you guys and just share and who knows, and learn at the same time. So I'm ready to kick this thing off.
Cool. Yeah, we've got an appointment with this court here shortly after we wrap up the podcast. So if he goes flying out the window at the end, that's why.
That's right.
All right, so let's get into this. So we're talking about the ultimate sales machine. So let's get into, first of all, kind of take me back to when you originally encountered the book and what did your business look like at that point. And well, actually, let's back up a little bit further, just because we're not necessarily speaking to people that are in the real estate industry who do know you well. Give us the 60-second bio on who you are, where you are, what you do first. Then we'll get into the book.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't even think it's going to take 60 seconds, but I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I am in the real estate industry, and the good thing about this podcast is I know you're not just targeting real estate agents. And when I thought about this book, I was introduced to this book when I went and saw Chet Holmes through a Tony Robbins event called Business Mastery. And then I immediately rushed to the book. And this book has nothing to do with the real estate industry. What it has to do, in my opinion, is it has to do with entrepreneurs, or it's speaking to an entrepreneur who wants to really grow their business. So I happen to be in real estate, been selling real estate for 23 years, own 4 different Century 21 franchises, am still recruiting agents and looking to expand that into multiple cities, and just having a good time with it.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, I mean, Greg is very well known in the real estate industry. I mean, he's a master of marketing automation. He's very much in what you would call it in coordination and helping Infusionsoft really tailor their package for the real estate industry. And so he's extremely knowledgeable about what's going on, not just in the real estate industry, but just marketing in general and entrepreneurship. I mean, you've got your hands in a lot of different things. You're not a real estate agent. You are a business owner that happens to be in real estate.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. As a matter of fact, December 31st, 2004, I decided I would no longer call myself a real estate agent, and I was a business owner / entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I just happened to play in the real estate space.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of how, I mean, you and I, Greg McDaniel, that's how we both look at it now. Is we both come from out of that world, and now we're getting into more of looking at it through an entrepreneurial mindset. Which books like this are huge, because if you listen to the standard material out there, it's all very sales oriented, and there's a lot of pieces missing. There's not a lot of educational material for the real estate industry that comes at it from a true business owner's perspective. So you really do have to reach outside the industry to get that perspective, which is how you came across the book. So. All right, so now let's go back and tell me a little bit about where your business was and the state that it was in when you came across the book initially.
I mean, where my business, I was a grinder. So I'm a real estate agent. I did own a real estate company. I kind of was wearing both hats. And but when I think about where was I was in full grind mode. It's wake up every day and grind with the mentality of the harder I work, the faster I'm going to get there. That's where I was. Now, I cannot remember how many sales I was making. I'm sure it was, well over 100 sales at that time. But it was. I think the more important thing is I wasn't using automation. I wasn't even really that interested in websites, and I thought about websites is just a waste of time. Database marketing, all that stuff was a waste of time. All I needed to do is just make a certain amount of calls, and if I called a certain amount of people, then I would be able to get a certain amount of appointments, and that would convert to a certain amount of deals. It didn't really matter if it was real estate or widgets. It was just all a numbers game. So that's where I was mentally, and I say I was doing well at that, but it was not something that I felt that I could sustain for an entire career. I wasn't going to just retire that way.
But were you having fun? I mean, it doesn't sound like you were working hard, but were you having any fun at all doing that?
No. I mean, I guess I had convinced myself that I was doing what I needed to do, and so therefore I felt maybe I was accomplished, but fun? No, that wasn't the conversation.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I mean, I've been back a couple of years ago. I was doing 85,000 phone calls in 2 years. On grinding it out, 500, 750 phone calls a day, door knocking, following up, and everything else. And was I grinding? Yeah, I was grinding. Was I having fun? No, not one bit. So that's why I'm so excited to talk with you and hear how you made that transition, out of the grind to a different mindset.
Yeah, what was the big mindset shift for you, Greg?
Leverage. So I think what ended up happening when I got introduced to Chet through his book, as well as I read his book immediately after I attended his seminar. It was just like I went to Vegas, attended a seminar, and I probably had the book on the flight back to the East Coast. Because I'm like, I was not, because it was 5 days with him and Tony Robbins, and what ended up happening is they woke me up. And I realized, hey, whoa, number one, I might have a talent that I could leverage myself, but I'm not going to be able to leverage my own talents inside of the grind. That's not going to happen, because it was like, wait, maybe I have some intellectual assets that I'm not utilizing. I was utilizing my physical assets, which is having the discipline to be able to stand up, make these calls, and do what I have to do for so many hours a day. That's the physical world, right? But then I have all these ideas, and I've got these masterminds, and I've got all these things that I know that I could be doing, but because I'm busy physically doing this other stuff, I'm not actually leveraging the information that's in the mind. So that woke me up when he says, look, you've got to get this thing out of your mind, and you got to start executing. And leverage and execution were probably the two words that I took away from Chet Holmes when I was first introduced. That set me off right there.
Leverage is the biggest one I've found in my business, is that, a lot of the top producers, they don't leverage the assets around them because they think they can do it all themselves. They're number one. Why would I delegate? I'm the best at it. But if you can, like, I learned how to use Snapchat from a 16-year-old that's going to intern from us. I leveraged his younger mind, and people, when they start opening up their mind to that type of thinking, going, hey, Matt or Greg, you have a special skill set. I want to leverage you to help me, and vice versa. Then tit for tat, then it'll probably come back, and you're going to ask something from me, and that's the way the world should be going around. You should be leveraging everybody else's, because you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be around the smartest people. That's all.
Yeah. So we should seek to leverage, and we should allow ourselves to be leveraged.
Yes.
And I think that's important. And that doesn't mean allow people to waste your time. That's a totally different conversation. But I tell people around my office and any businesses that I own, I was like, look, your job is to leverage me, because be assured, I am going to be all over leveraging you. And in return, you've got to leverage me. That is your job. And if you're smart, you'll tap me for everything I have, and we'll both win in the end.
Yeah. Well, in terms of leveraging you, in the sense of come to me and get the stuff that is the highest and best use of my time.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And maybe a way to explain it is this: somebody taught me, and I don't know which book this is or which seminar, but somebody said it's not about being the resource, it's about being resourceful. So for those that are in my companies, I'm telling them, you've got to be resourceful. Tell me what you need. Pull it out of me. Let me be a resource for you. Now, in turn, of course I'm going to be resourceful and leverage and get stuff out of them.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, I've had it reminds me of a million conversations I've had with my dad on the spiritual side of things. If you want something, you pull it out of somebody else. And sometimes the people that are the best and have the most to contribute, they're not going to push it on you. You have to go and you have to pull it out of them.
Yeah.
But so getting back to the leverage, the conversation about leverage and why this is such a struggle for entrepreneurs and business owners. So what was the key for you? I mean, everybody, I think we're told about leverage. We're told that the key to growth is, you have to hire, you have to build a team, you have to train that team, and different things like that. And let's say once you get over the roadblocks of saying, well, I'm the best at everything, I don't want to delegate. Like once you cross that bridge and you decide, okay, I am going to figure out how to delegate. What's then that next thing that's holding somebody back?
Holding them back for delegation, and what I see being most common is there's a few things. Number one, they don't trust that the other person's going to be able to do it as well as they can do it themselves. And so therefore they in their mind they're hallucinating that, hey, look, they're not going to do it as well as I am, so then I've got to do it myself. But to be honest with you, I think that's an inauthenticity. I think that a lot of people that are saying that, it's just that they're afraid to relinquish control of what they've been doing, because when they relinquish control of what they've been doing, guess what? They don't know what to do with themselves. So I think people hold on to things longer just to have a sense of security, like, okay, I have a sense of worth because I have to do these things. And if they start relinquishing control and letting them go, then all of a sudden, then that goes away and they don't know what to do with their time. I really think there's something like that going on.
Either that, or they find themselves either not knowing what to do with their time, or they know what they should be doing with their time, and that's the stuff that's the highest and best use of your time. But that's also the stuff that takes the most mental effort, right?
Yes.
So I mean, if you as a business owner, if you start leveraging yourself and you get those $10, $12 an hour tasks off your plate, guess what's left on your plate? It's all $50 and $100 and $500 an hour tasks, and those are not always the easiest tasks.
Absolutely. And I also say that I will agree, they're probably not going to do it as good as you are. But what does that matter?
It doesn't.
What does that matter? It doesn't matter. It's not about being as good as you are, because here's what they're going to do. They're going to do it as good as they can. And if you're a good leader, you're going to help them improve and improve and improve, and then they're going to add their own twist on it, and next thing you know, they're doing it in someone else's eyes. They're doing it better than you are. It's just they're not doing it as good as you are is really just nothing more than saying they're not doing it like I would have done it. Who cares?
Yeah, it's different styles, different personality types, the whole gig. I mean, that happened to me when I brought my ISA on. He took away all my calling, and I, like you were saying, Greg, I sat in my office in this chair just going, okay, now what do I do? Because I'm known as the caller, right? And so it's, I had to go out and like Matt was saying, then I looked at my plate. Okay, what's on it? Well, it was only those higher value items to do, and it was really cool. I mean, that really was an epiphany that popped in my head. I'm like, oh, I can do all this other stuff. And
but then it comes down to, and we talked about this real briefly before we started recording, which is the training aspect. There's the two sides of the leverage, right? There's the leverage, and then there's the training.
Yes. Absolutely. And I trained my ISA. I spent time with him, refining him, getting him better. Because in his and like you were saying, Greg, in other people's eyes, he's doing it better than I am. Yep. He's doing it differently.
Yeah. So Harrelson, what does that? I mean, what does that look like for you in terms of like your highest dollar activities, and how much you're investing in the training of your team? Like, how much does that occupy your day and your week?
Well, good. Oh, gosh, that's a great question, and I feel like just about every hour is training for me. And so training can come in different formats. Training doesn't have to necessarily mean I'm actually physically training somebody. You can train people by just being the best you are in demonstrating your own craft in real life situations, and let them all observe. So if you were to come into my office, or I call it a training center. It's a 3,000 square foot is the upstairs, and in that is one big room with about 50 to 55 stand-up stations, and I work out of the middle of that room every single day. And so I'm listening to them as this at the same time they're listening to me. So I could be doing my own work for 4 or 5 hours a day on the phone, and they're actually observing how I talk, how I answer questions, how I do this. All of this is going on. I call that training. But I don't actually have to single that out in my schedule and say, okay, I got to spend this time training. I've set up the entire environment where it's really an open type of company where there's training going on all the time. Now, if we were to talk about structured training, I probably spend 5 hours of structured, scheduled training every week.
Yeah. Which is
And
about
I do it all
4 hours and
conference
45 minutes more than most entrepreneurs.
Yes, and I do it all through conference calls.
Yeah.
Or I've got multiple offices, so I'll have a video. I'll have in my training room. Whatever I'm doing in there is being syndicated to multiple offices. So they're in another room in another town actually watching.
Yeah, it's like leverage upon leverage.
Greg, there's a really good new camera that's going to be coming out. It's called the Mevo, M-E-V-O. Costs about 200 and almost 250, 400 bucks. Yeah. I paid, I think, $299 for it. It is go buy it. It's in pre-order right now, because if you're doing that, it's like a complete production company within this tiny. It's like the size of this mouse. I mean, this does a small mouse. Really, really cool stuff. And if you're already syndicating, you can have interviews. You can be working with people, and this thing will automatically transfer from person to person. It's really, really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, broadcast right into Facebook Live, so you can set up like a private Facebook group for your different offices.
Is it already out?
No, I think it comes out next month.
Okay. No, they have no release date for it yet.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I talked to them yesterday. I was like, "Where's my camera?" They're like, "Sorry."
Yeah. Of course, you call them up. All right, so let's get into the next part of it. I think the next takeaway we want to talk about was the education-based marketing. So one of the things, I mean, that's for anybody that understands like how me and Greg met. So we met through viral marketing, and this book was a huge influence on the founder of that company, Frank Klesitz. Like the whole structure of like viral marketing and why you send videos to your database, it literally all comes from this book. And
yes.
So even Greg, before we started recording, you mentioned that was a big aha for you. I think that was completely outside of, and probably before you even came across Frank and viral marketing and that whole world. But I think that's why you guys align so
That's
well.
That's exactly how we connected. I was working databases, and and then he started having this viral marketing, these videos I was doing what he was doing. I wasn't using video. But I was using the same kind of methodologies, and the essence of what we were doing was in line with each other, which is really delivering value, not spammy sales stuff, delivering value. So I think what we connected on is the essence of both of what we were both doing, and it's merged and formed a relationship from there.
Yeah, so let's dig a little bit deeper into that, and for people that may have not haven't read the book yet, so talk a little bit about what was the big aha in terms of when you're talking about it. First, let's define the database, and then why would you bother to like change up your sales message? Why don't you just pick up the phone, tell them what you have to offer, pitch it, and see if they say yes?
Okay, so it comes back to leverage. It's like, okay, really, when I'm making phone calls and I'm following, kind of the numbers game, I know that X amount of phone calls equals X amount of yeses and X amount of no's. But the no's are always more than the yeses, right? If I made 30 calls and I got 2 yeses, then I'm celebrating, like, yes, I got 2 yeses out of 30 calls. But then when I started thinking about it, I was like, wait, I got 28 no's. So I invest more time on the no's than I do on the yeses. I know the 2 yeses, the average time on the call was probably longer than the average time for the no's, but when you accumulate all the time you spend in the 28 no's, that was more time than I spent in the 2 yeses. So I started thinking about, I'm not getting paid for this time. How do I start monetizing the no? That was the aha. I was like, wait, I got to figure out how to monetize the no. I'm good at monetizing the yes. You say yes to me, I do a presentation, we're probably going to do business together. Maybe we won't, but more likely than not we are. But what about all the no's? How do I monetize all the no's? And then I started listening to the no's, and I realized they in my business, they own property. So a no is no, a no wasn't no, I'm never going to sell. A no was no, I'm not selling right now. So then I said, okay, to monetize the no's, I have to set up a system where I can win them over time. I can win them over. So in the beginning, when I'm prospecting them, excuse me, guys, I'm putting in a charger here. But in the beginning, when I'm actually prospecting and they tell me no, and then I would get their email address and say, hey, I'm going to send you some information. At that moment, they were an acquaintance. I mean, I'm sorry, a stranger. They didn't know me, I didn't know them, but they trusted me enough to give me their information. And I said, okay, if we're going to monetize the no, I've got to be able to figure out how to systematically take people from a stranger, turn them into an acquaintance, and then later on turn them into an advocate. And when I finally turn them into an advocate, over time, I will get their business when they're ready, and I'll get their referrals until they're ready. And I did that by automating this the emails and drip campaigns, and then making sure that I never sent anything asking for anything. I only sent things that were delivering value. I was going to give, and let the law of reciprocity take place. That's basically what happened.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I was raised in the business, Greg. My father, who's been doing the real estate for 43 or 44 years now, he's told me, and I've beat it in everybody's head, is exactly what, I mean, there's like listening to myself and what you were saying. I mean, everyone asks how to close a deal. Dude, you got to open a deal, open a client with value. Don't try to like close them with some clever line. If you deliver quality product that's going to benefit their lives, they're going to view you as someone who is a friend, a cohort, someone that they can trust and collaborate with, not someone who's going to do a sleazy sales clothesline on them, because you bettered their life. Why wouldn't they? Like you said, the law of reciprocity. Why wouldn't they want to come work with you now? Doesn't make it.
Yeah, they're closing on you. I mean, basically, what ends up happening is they're calling you and saying, "Hey, I need you to. Can you do this for me? Or can you come over and meet with me and share with me some information?" And so we're coming from a place of, "Hey, you've delivered so much value. I see you as an authority," and so they assume the subordinate role. There's not going to be two authorities, right? There's going to be an authoritative and a subordinate in just about all relationships. I mean, maybe in the first couple of minutes, people are jockeying for that authoritative position, but after a few minutes, everything kind of settles in. So when they were telling me no, I'd get their email address. I would then start delivering value over time, and then they would then turn and see me as the authority. So when they called, they were like, "Yeah, I can you help me?"
Yeah.
You don't. There's if in today's world in sales, and believe me, I am a salesperson and I'm proud of it. And so don't take this wrong, anybody that's out there. But if you're in the sales business and you're still talking about closing, it's because you're not delivering enough value.
Yep. Well, Greg, you could not have said it any better. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things that really fascinates me, because I naturally gravitate to more of the consulting advisory. Like, I would not consider myself a strong closer, right? I for whatever reason don't have that mentality. What's really fascinating to me is the people that do have that mentality, that can also step into that role of just bringing value and that very consultative mindset. Frank is one of those guys. Greg, you're one of those guys. Like, I don't understand, I guess, the mental transition, like how you go from being a super hard close, like a grinder, and then your mind opens up, but you're able to step and you're able to occupy both shoes. Does that make sense? Like, that, to me, that's the hardest thing for an entrepreneur, is sales while delivering value. It's like most people just have one or the other, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you know what, I would say maybe there's quite a few people that have both. Maybe internally they do, but they've been taught to just be big time closer, ABCs, right? Always be closing. So that's what we were taught. And it wasn't our teachers and our families and our moms and our dads that probably changed us. I think some of us have just been introduced to new technologies, new information, and we've gravitated to taking the risk, because it is a risk to say, I'm not going to close on people. I'm going to deliver so much value, and then their close is not necessary. There's a risk. So you got to go all in on that if it's gonna pay off.
Very true, but I mean the way that people usually close, like you said, they do the assumptive close. Like, you just assume that other person is ready to move forward, but instead of saying, all right, well, so what's the next steps? Let's do this. Ask them. So where do you ask them the question? So where do you think we should go from here? You know, and if you've delivered enough value, they will come to you, like you said. I mean, you don't have to chase them down, hunt them down, you know, repetitively do anything. They'll just be like, all right, Greg, I'm ready to go. I think it is the right time for us to buy, for us to sell, so for us to do whatever in any kind of sales position. It's just like that small verbiage change.
Yeah, and
I
there's
like the way
another.
you said that. The way that you said that. You know what I was experiencing as you were talking is you were creating a safe space
Yes.
for me to just be transparent with you.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what I hear, or what I experience. Yeah.
And most time, what salespeople do is they pull triggers that strike people's nerves, and they want to get away from that because they're getting you know that sales pitch is coming when they say certain phrases. But then if I give it back to you, put it in your lap, and say, so Greg, you know, how would you like to proceed from here? You know, what would the next steps look like for you from here? And then let you tell it. I mean, it's like you said, the safe space, the comfort zone. I'm not pushing you anymore.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about that, Greg, because you mentioned kind of the environment that you have where you've got all these guys around you, and I've seen you on Hangouts where you're training people. I mean, and you can train salespeople very, very effectively. But I'm curious, when you're teaching somebody how to phrase that on the phone, how to get the results that they want while still being in that mindset of delivering value first, how does that translate into the actual like cold call or sales call scenario?
Yeah. Okay. Good. So what I see, I would say the strategy or the model that you need to create on a call in order to stay in line with what we're talking about here, which is delivering value, is everybody has let's assume for a moment that we're on a call. Doesn't matter what we're selling, but we're aware that there's a slight hint of interest. Okay, it's not just an absolutely no, I'm never, going to do anything, I have no interest, whatnot. When you get somebody that has a slight hint of interest, it's all about asking questions, and we know that, but it's identifying motivation, finding out where these people are, asking questions like, so, what's important to you about this transaction? Or let's just use it if we're talking about real estate. Hey, I hear that you might be moving back to Maryland. I hear what you said. You may be moving back to Maryland, but I'm just kind of curious. I mean, what's up in Maryland? What's taking you up in Maryland? Oh, you've got grandkids. Oh, how old are they? Okay. Are they into any activities? Yes, they're into these activities. Okay. So at that point, we can, depending on the age of the person that I'm talking to, let's just say that they're 63, 64, and they tell me they have grandkids that live in another town, and they're telling me about the ballet and the swimming and all these things. Because I'm asking questions, what I'll end up identifying is that the entire reason they are thinking about moving is because they want to experience what it would be like to live in the same town with their grandchildren and not miss any more of those events. See, through a series of questions, then I can understand what the true motivation is to the absolute core, what's going on with this particular potential client. And then what my job is, because that might be that's their motivation, I might kind of read into it and say that's their problem. That's what they're trying, that's the pain they're trying to move away from. Then I become solution oriented, and my job is to give them options that will help connect them or move them from the pain to the pleasure.
Yeah, you're a consultant.
To me, that's it. I'm a consultant. That's the conversation. It's always identifying to the core what's the true motivation, so then you know exactly what you're selling. I'm not selling their house in that situation. I'm creating a space for them to actually live the dream and experience the joy that they want to have by being by their grandchildren. The house is just part of a transaction we got to take care of, but it has nothing to do with what we're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, you're curing their pain. You're solving that problem that they're having. Greg, real question: are we ever part of Howard Britton's Star Power?
I never was. No, never was. I've been a Mike Ferry guy all my life.
Okay, I thought I could have sworn you were, because Howard used to talk about going 3 deep. We have the initial 3 or 5 deep. Initial question, core problem. Really digging down on it, because people give you surface stuff all the time.
Absolutely.
What you were doing right there. Like you said, I created a safe space. I felt very comfortable with the way you were handling that. I in my mind, I was like, I am 63. Damn, I look good for 63. and all of a sudden I have grandkids. But I felt comfortable. I'm like, I like this guy. I don't know why I like this guy, but I like this guy. You know, and I think of the ballet. I'm like, oh my God, little Susie, she did her ballet last week, and I missed it because we couldn't get there. I don't want to do that again. And
so that's interesting because it's, as opposed to you making statements, you're asking questions that gets them to draw it out of themselves, and they're literally amplifying their own pain in the process of answering your questions, which makes it easier for them. Like when you then make the statement, so what do you think our next step should be? Well, our next step should be, let's get my home on the market so I can get up to Maryland. They make that decision on themselves without you having to close them and get them, like, hey, when can I come over? Or if you do, it makes that a lot easier and less fearful, I guess, for them. So yeah.
You want to be a resource for them in all ways, shapes, or forms. And if it's not the right time, then give them whatever they're going to need for the time being while they're still in town. But like you subtly grew that pain that Matt was talking about. It was phenomenally done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good.
All right, so we'll finish up on education-based marketing. There was something that we talked about a little bit before we started recording, which was the concept of the Dream 100 and figuring out kind of really who you want to work with. And this is something that I've done in my own business. But I'm curious, kind of like, can you elaborate on that a little bit? And how did you incorporate that into such a stock, what sounds like a run-of-the-mill kind of just mass prospecting game like real estate sales?
Yeah, so what Chet he talks about in his book, and this is it's chapter 9, by the way. I mean, I know the chapter. I've read the chapter so many times. And when he's talking about the Dream 100, what he's telling us to do, and other people have talked about, you got to get your list and you got to work your list and whatnot. But it's real simple. He taught me a strategy. And instead of saying Dream 100, which is 100 people that I wanted to do business with, what I turned around and did is I said, okay, what's the Dream 100 markets? What are the Dream 100 communities that I want to actually focus on? So I took the concept, and instead of focusing on people, I focused on actual communities and neighborhoods themselves. And I kind of wrote down some things that from the book because I thought we would probably talk about it. But, the process was you identify your Dream 100, or it could be a Dream 50. It wasn't 100 communities for me, but it was 30 communities for me. So I would identify what 30 communities do I really want to dominate. And then what I would do is then, once you identify the 30 communities or the 100 people, then you stretch out and you write down, you create a marketing calendar for 12 months. And you go ahead and figure out how many times are you going to email this person? And what are you going to email? So you're going to email them 18 times in 12 months? Well, then go ahead and write out all the 18 emails. Don't do anything until you got this all done. Write down the 18 emails. How many times are you going to physically mail them? I'm going to physically mail them 4 times a year. Then go ahead and design the postcard or design the mailer and have that ready to go. How many times are you going to talk to them? How many times are you going to advertise, to that segmented group, maybe in a custom audience on Facebook? How many times are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? And you would figure out a calendar over 12 months where you would hit them. Not only would you call them, hit them on the phone, but you would show up in their email. You would show up in their mailbox. If they opened up Facebook, you were a sponsored ad that they would see. In other words, it was total immersion. I'm going to go after this group, and I'm going to hit them from multiple medias, and I'm going to plan this out so when this postcard hits on January 15, then the calls are scheduled on January 17th. Because when this piques their curiosity, then we know that we got a 25% increase in return if we'll follow up a postcard with a phone call within a 48-hour period of time. So it's a very strategic, and I always thought of remember that, I think it was, Desert Storm, and they talk about shock and awe.
Yeah.
That's what that is. You're hitting them by sea, by air, on the ground. That's shock and awe. And so you do that for 12 months. Now remember, it's all delivering value. Okay? Yeah. We're not hitting them all this shock and awe saying you need to sell with me, you need to sell with me. No, it's like, hey, strategically in my market in October, the property tax bills go out. So I knew that the October pieces, whatever we were going to be doing in October, it was going to be built around, hey, just letting you know you're probably going to receive a tax bill in your mailbox in the next couple of weeks, and when you do, look at this particular part, the assessed value. If you feel like you're, assessed too high, reach out to us. We'll give you some information to determine whether or not you should appeal your value and drive your property taxes down. Like now I would think out the entire year of what happens at different points, and then my message would be, would be tailored to those events that were taking place.
That's awesome.
That's how I managed the Dream 100. Again, I didn't do 100. I did like a Dream 30.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I was very curious about that. Like in a professional services business, like what I do, I mean, I can narrow it down to specific people.
Yes.
You have like a top 12 and like a kind of 150 general database of people that I think will be good referral partners or maybe potential clients down the road. Like with that, I can narrow it down to actual human beings that I want to build a relationship with, right? But yeah, it is the key. If you're going to shock and awe, you better shock and awe with something that's not just a sales message. It better be value. Otherwise people get tired of it really quickly.
Well, the consumer has the remote control. They have the mute button.
Yeah.
It's called unsubscribe, or just never open the email. All these different ways. They control the mute button. So and I think people underestimate this. People are building databases and they're sending stuff out thinking that all these people are like engaging. Like they think that the size of their database is the size of their audience. No, your audience is only the size of the people that are consistently opening and engaging within the emails or whatever it is you're sending over and over again. Now, if somebody opens it one time, that's not the audience. The audience are the habitual people, the ones that are opening it every single time. So size of your database could be 1,000 and your audience could be like 50.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the important part to remember, and nobody really thinks about it. Everyone's like, oh, I got a 10,000 person database, but you got only 200 people that are opening it because you send out crap.
That's right.
Don't try to be, don't be so in love with yourself and the size of your database. You need to be in love with the person that you're reaching out to and bringing as much value to them. Think it through their mind. Would you click on this? Would you open that? And if it's like, hey, don't forget to turn your clocks back, everybody says it.
I've had somebody literally tell me, and I've had all kinds of great little comments, but one that just sticks out in my mind is this. I had a husband tell me that he's never going to sell, but he's already discussed with his wife that if he passes away, that I am their realtor.
Wow.
Now, I knew, I love to tell things like that because that validated to me that at least in some way I'm delivering value. If this guy is going to go out of his way to tell me that when I die, I've already instructed my wife that you're our guy.
Wow.
And I don't even know the guy. I don't know the person. This was a person that he was probably a no sometime, so I was monetizing the no by putting him in the email, so he was a stranger, but then he became an advocate. And that, can you imagine if we just do this over and over and over again? This is, Greg, remember, hey, this is fun, Greg.
That's fun. That's fun. Having some guy call up and you're like, I don't even know what you look like, but I'm going to be your agent? Awesome.
That's fun.
Well, cool, guys. Well, I can't think of a better way to wrap things up right there. So the book is Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. It really is amazing. You should go buy it immediately. I mean, this is one of that's been out for a long time. It's super influential in a lot of people's lives, and if you haven't read it already, you should definitely read it immediately. But Greg, Greg Harrelson, first of all. So how do people take a step towards you if they want to find out more about what you do, or just want to learn more about what you've got going on?
I've got tons of just videos on YouTube of just training real estate. Anybody that's out there and training, if you're not in real estate, hey man, there's things out there that I'm just constantly pushing out to YouTube on things that I've learned about database marketing. None of it's for sale. That's not what I'm up to. But what I am doing is I am contributing also to my own industry, and I just let the law of reciprocity kind of come to me, from there. But I'm very accessible, gregharrelson@gmail.com. Anybody want to just email me? I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I love, sales and business and entrepreneurship. So, I'm kind of weird like that, where I love people to reach out because I enjoy answering and engaging and having conversations. Quite frankly, I believe I can teach everybody something, and I also believe I can learn something from everybody. So, that's how you reach out to me.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, there was Chris Smith said something really interesting when we interviewed him here a couple weeks ago. He said, "Are you willing to learn from someone that's different from you?"
Ah, yeah, that's
Great,
great.
like great quote. Like I was
Yeah.
that floored me for a second because I'm
Yeah.
like, like we get caught in those clicks, right? We whether it's an
Yeah.
industry click or even within our industry, we have our clicks of people that kind of feel the same way that we do and read the same books and then follow the same gurus and all that, and we tend to only value their opinions because they come from the same framework, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's human nature, but are we willing to really have that humility to be able to say, I literally can learn, I can pick something up from this person. I may not agree with everything they have to say, but I can pick something up from just about anyone.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love
Great
it.
way to live life.
Great quote.
All right, guys. Well, let's we'll go ahead and put a nice little bow on this one. We'll call it good, and we've got another podcast to record. So for everybody, we've got some more amazing guests, more amazing books to cover. We thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe on YouTube or iTunes or Stitcher if you prefer the audio versions, and we will see you guys on the next one.
See you guys.